Hi, welcome back to Atheist Edge. I'm Jim. Today in the studio I have Brady Blevins. He's a senior apologist with the Watchman Fellowship organization. He's got his doctorate from Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. He's been a pastor, senior pastor for 10 years. He's been with the Watchman organization, and I'm going to give him a little chance to talk about what that entails. He's been with them for about 15 years now. Welcome, Brady.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, so the Watchman organization, first off, what exactly do you do? What are your services?
We're a research ministry, and we look at cults, the occult, false religion, counterfeit Christianity, New Age spirituality. Basically, we're almost like a watchdog group for different spiritual groups. So we're kind of like the go-to place when you have these crazy cults pop up and the news stations want to know about them. They call us, and we help them out with the research that we've done. Of course, we also go into churches and we speak on various topics like the occult, what we're talking about today, but also, Islam, Jehovah's Witness, Mormonism, that kind of
Atheist.
stuff. Atheism, absolutely.
I guess this was as good a time as any. When you do talk about atheists, this is kind of how, maybe not how we met, but how we interact a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we do with our ministry is we'll go and at times I'll do like 5-6 week series on atheism, and so I talk about the different arguments for the existence of God, how to ask questions, how to maneuver through these situations without starting a world war. But one of the unique things that I do, and I really have to give a great deal of appreciation and thanks to the Metroplex Atheist for doing this for me, is they'll actually come out and we do a live Q&A in a church with anywhere from 3 to 5 atheists at any given time, and it's an opportunity for our folks to be able to, well, I say our folks, the Christian folks, to be able to ask the atheist questions based on what they had learned in our time. And I know we've done it a couple of times, and it has been it's been a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun.
I think it's been good.
We have a couple, if you want to watch them, in my playlist on this channel. Okay, so today we're going to focus specifically on the occult, and even more specifically on Ouija boards. I'm sure we're going to get off on some tangents, but Brady has prepared a little bit of information for us on the occult, and we're looking at this from a non-believer and a Christian believer, but I think both of us agree that we're in a similar agreement on the occult.
Yeah.
Except now we're going to get into it a little more, and I'll just preface it. You don't have to answer it right away, but one of the first things in my mind is, do you think there's anything to it? I know you're against it, but can the Ouija board or tarot cards, is it a possibility to release demonic spirits? And is it dangerous for Christians to play around with?
I think that, yes, it is possible. Now, how often it happens, that might be another story, but I think it is possible, and I think it's dangerous for anyone to take part of. I
think that's the only way we both think you think it's a harmful practice, that because there's actual it's harmful, like it could, because it's valid, it's a valid form of practice. It could cause actual harm. We think it's just a pointless exercise. Sure. It's futile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I mean, I would say our level of agreement on this particular subject is
Very
probably
high.
like 99%, because with the exception of the possibility of demonic activity, I think we're pretty much in lockstep on this.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, what's first?
Well, we got to define what the occult is. And when we look at the word occult, it comes from a Latin word occultus, which means to things that are hidden. So when we're talking about the occult, we're talking about hidden knowledge or hidden power. So those are really that's the foundational aspect of what the occult's all about. So when we get into power, this idea of power, it's all about magic, but not magic with the C, magic with the K. And this was something that was done by Aleister Crowley to be able to differentiate between what he was doing and what he was pushing versus what, David Copperfield does. And even like Penn and Teller will come out and say, no, we're illusionists. We're not. They don't even like the term magician, which is interesting because they want to. I feel like they just want to distance themselves as far away from this kind of stuff.
You call it Aleister Crowley? It's Aleister Crowley, or
it's it's funny that you mentioned that. Because I mean, I'm from Texas, so Crowley. Crowley. Yeah. That's how we normally say it. Yeah, just right. Not too far from here. Mm-hmm. But the vast majority of the people I've heard say it say Crowley, and so I don't know.
It's hard to have it to break.
Crowley, tomato,
right.
Who knows? But,
all right, so he's the founder of the modern day version of the occult. Mm-hmm. Now, how much of the actual old stuff, the Celtic and the Druidic, where it actually came from, did he use, or did he just make this up whole cloth?
Well,
did he reinvent the wheel?
His big deal was all about like thelmic magic, and so his idea was more of coming into terms with one's true will, and so that's really what he was interested in. In fact, a lot of what he did was really based on the ceremonies that he had to, in some sense, mock Christianity, but also just kind of point out that it's this idea of being able to put power of yourself over another person. And this was primarily done sexually. And in fact, a lot of his rituals are based on sexual practices. And it would differ anywhere between, he started out with sex with women, eventually with sex with men also, so we would probably consider him more bisexual. But it was always about the sex. It was never really about any kind of a relationship, really honestly, with either of the two sexes.
It was a means to get sex.
Well,
just like many cult members. I mean,
yeah,
David Koresh and Jim Jones, and you look at all these, the Mormon one, Joseph Smith. It was really just to get laid, wasn't it? I mean, sometimes that's their primary motivation, and they build an entire cult around it.
I don't know if it's primary or not, but it may very well be one. With him, though, it was I think more the exertion of the power over the individual, and it was all ritualistic, and so it's all going back. So I think that there was a significant part. I don't think it was completely made up. And in his whole goal was he wanted to perpetuate and push evil, and that's not a Christian. That's not me as a Christian saying that. That's actually the consensus out there between Christian and non-Christian folks who've studied him.
Like Satanists, modern day Satanists, most of them are atheists. Mm-hmm. It's archetypal to them. That Satan represents a rebellion against what they believe. They believe God is the bad guy. Or something. So
it's not a personal Satan. In fact, I go to churches and
but some do. Some actually believe in an actual Satan.
Some do.
I think it's a minority.
Yeah, some do, but most don't. And I'll go to churches and I'll say, look, then you have Satanists who, for the most part, don't even believe in Satan. Everybody's like, what? Hold on. How do you? It's like, no, you're right. It's an archetypal figure. It is. It's an idea. It's an ideology, not a personal Satan.
Well, Aleister Crowley was like that, or you said he pushed evil. I don't know. Satanists do the exact opposite. In fact, one of their tenets is do no harm.
Yeah, and you see that do no harm. What's the
do what you will as long as it doesn't harm anyone or something.
Yes, that is something. The Wiccans.
Yes.
The Wiccans have this idea of here it is. On ye harm none, do what ye will. And that's actually the Wiccan Rede or the Wiccan Law. So it's
not a bad way to live.
It's basically do no harm and do what you will. But I'm following you with that to an extent. But sometimes what I want to do is so selfish that it does cause harm to others.
But then they would violate that law.
Yeah, well, then I can't do what I want though. So if
you want to swing a dead cat, as long as it doesn't hit anyone, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of it?
I don't know, but maybe if it had a disease or something, how would you know? I don't know.
Right. Let's see. What else? Oh, Ouija boards too.
Yeah.
Now, when I was reading, I was kind of preparing for this, and with the Ouija boards, they, of course, I'm logic, science, and everything. Yes. They said, so many attempts. You've got the theists' attempts to explain its validity, saying, yes, it is a thing, and be careful with it, and stay away from it. And then you've got guys like me that says, no, it's complete hogwash. And then there's kind of in between the paranormal, the conspiracy guys.
Yeah.
And they'll say there's something to it. It might not be divine, But there might be something to it, like spirits or mediums can do that. And the best way to test it that I saw is to blindfold them when they do it. That skews the readings, and to turn the board 90 degrees, and then let them, without them knowing, then instead of, because you can memorize the pattern, but if it's turned 90 degrees and you don't know it, you're not going to be building any words.
It's true. There's a couple of explanations that are out there, and I mean, in fact, the James Randi Educational Foundation, they do a lot of work in this. In fact, there was a article written by one of the folks who works with their group who went into this in pretty great detail. But there's a couple of factors that are involved. One is you have the psychologists say that it's something that's working on our subconscious. So we may not necessarily be aware of what we're wanting it to say necessarily in the forefront of our mind, but we're moving it around and we're really expressing what we want it to say. And so I think that I think that that's very much a possibility. I mean, I think that really all three of the answers I'm going to give you are possible. I think
you'll tell me which one you lean towards it.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
I'll tell you that as well. Now, another explanation. This is interesting. Is thing called a ideomotor, an ideomotor response, which is an explanation that refers to the influence or suggestion of an experience on an involuntary or unconscious motor level. So this is where it gets into the explanation. And there was a fella by the name of William B. Carpenter in 1852, and his explanations for the movement of rods, also in pendulums, dowsers. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Looking for
water with the sticks in their hands. That's also an occultic practice, and so.
Is there anything to that, in your opinion?
I don't think there is at all. I mean, what's funny is the university that I teach at, it's Arlington Baptist University, and we had someone come out because we have a rich history at our school with during the Prohibition era and gambling and prostitution and all that kind of stuff. And there are hidden tunnels on our campus, and we're looking for more hidden tunnels. And so
have you been down in them?
I've seen one. I haven't gone through all the.
You teach at Arlington Baptist University?
Yes.
Okay.
And so
all this is going to be in the notes below too.
We had someone come out and actually use a dowsing technique, and it was one of those things I saw. It's like, hold on, I don't know if we really should be allowing them to do this. I mean, it was over in like 10-15 seconds, but it was funny because where they just believed that there was a tunnel. The History Channel came out, or I guess now it's called History, came out and did a whole show on this last year. In fact, it aired on October 31st, 2016, and they went and they used real scientific machines to determine where there would be new tunnels, and they looked in some of these spots where this guy said that these tunnels were, and their stuff showed that there was absolutely nothing. So I don't think there's anything to it, and I think
every test I've ever seen, it's no better than random chance.
Yeah, and I think that's where this comes down to. I think for the most
Ouija
part,
board too.
For the most part, yes.
You don't think there's any possibility of? You believe in demonic influence.
Yes.
You believe that we could be influenced or manipulated by dark powers.
Yes, absolutely. Right. Yeah. Now,
would that be a method? Would that be a vehicle for doing it?
Oh, absolutely.
Or what's the most common vehicle?
This is an open door. I think this may be one of. I mean, golly, that or horoscopes
or pop culture music.
Yeah.
Fads.
Yeah, fads. If you look over the years, maybe like the last 130 years or so, 140 years that we've had the Ouija board, I think that's probably the vehicle that's probably gotten the most traction in terms of introducing people to demonic spirits. I mean, you have other things like tarot card readings. You do have stuff like dowsing. You have stuff like seances, which were very popular. I mean, the use of the Ouija board was very popular in the 19th century, as people were, wanting to contact their loved ones who were in the Civil War.
It's always in the top 10 most popular board games for Christmas.
Yeah, in fact, this is interesting. When Parker Brothers, in I think it was 1960.
I did the little research too.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, when they got it, the first year they had it, of course they keep themselves private, so we don't know for certain, but it was reported that they sold 20 to 25 million boards that first year, which eclipsed Monopoly. And of course Monopoly's been their all-time, bestseller, consistent bestseller. And there you go. It's right there.
I did not know that.
I think movies are another thing too. In fact, did you know that there's been 69 movies that have featured the Ouija board in it?
Featured the Ouija board.
Yeah, featured the Ouija board.
Wow.
And if you start looking at which board,
that would, if I were you, if I were a Christian that believed in this stuff, it would only scare me if the Ouija board was a method, an actual verified method that demonic forces, that dark forces, satanic forces could use to corrupt us.
Oh, absolutely.
If not, then I would laugh at it.
Exactly, and I think you're exactly right.
Do we have any evidence that it can harm us spiritually?
What we have is witness testimony.
That's a form of evidence.
So it is a form of evidence, and so
it's the week. It's on the weekend, but
it
it's
is
still
on the
evidence.
weaker end, and so therefore you have to look at I really think that if you're going to accept the eyewitness testimony, it becomes a matter of, do you believe that there's a possibility of supernatural versus are you completely ruled out that nothing supernatural can exist?
I think supernatural could exist.
And
most atheists would think that. I think the probability is really, really low.
Yeah. Well, and another thing is, you look at the Bible, and there's a number of stories about, demons, demonic possession. You just kind of go down
tons
the list.
Of verses.
And so, you think about all the verses that are there, but you also look at the history that's there. I mean, you're talking, 6,000 years, of history. You're looking at the Bible specifically, you're looking at about 4,000 years covered, and then you take those occurrences that we know about and you divide it by 4,000, you all of a sudden you realize it's not, this isn't as much of a everyday, it wasn't happening every day like maybe we think it is. But I don't want to discount the possibility that there was indeed or that there is indeed demonic possession that takes place here, or demonic influence, familiar spirits.
Jesus, he drove. It just occurred to me he drove out a bunch of demons into a herd of pigs and ran them off the cliff or something, right?
Yeah. In Mark chapter 5. So,
do you think that really happened?
Absolutely.
Actual demons.
Yes.
And oh wow, okay. Yeah, so there's 4 here that I found. You were speaking about in the Bible, but do not turn to mediums or spiritualists.
Deuteronomy 18. On
that one, all this satanic sacrifice to the son or daughter, and it talks against that. Do not consult mediums and spiritists. People who whisper or mutter. Do not inquire of. Don't try to consult the dead. That's a big one.
Yes.
Don't try to, because that's God's domain. Don't meddle in it. Don't try to talk to your dead family, and because that's one of the biggest sticking points is, theists will say, anyway, even if you do try to contact your loved ones and you think you're talking to them, most likely it's a demon pretending to be your grandma.
Unless the person's a charlatan and they're just doing it to try to rip you off or take your money, then I would concur with that completely. That if you're running into what's a legitimate spiritual case, and a lot of that's based on the principle that Jesus taught in Luke chapter 16 when he's giving us the story of rich man and Lazarus. Rich man dies, he goes to Hades. Lazarus, he goes into Abraham's bosom, which is paradise, aka the second compartment of Sheol. And Jesus in his teaching says, there's this great gulf that's fixed. And so pretty much once you're in one place or the other, you're there. You're set. There's no hopping back and forth. You can't. You couldn't go from the paradise portion of Hades to the place of torment. You couldn't go back to earth. You couldn't. There's no jumping back and forth. That death seals your destination, and so therefore, In fact, even when you look at other places in the Bible, Saul visits the Witch of Endor, probably the most popular Old Testament passage on this subject. But what do you see the outcome was? Well, he died the next day. Yeah, it's like every time that this is talked about, it's always in a warning, hey, don't do it. Because, and I think for the most part is that, okay, what if you did it 100 times and 99 times it was no big deal, nothing really happened? What about that one time? I mean, I don't know about you, but if demonic activity is real, and they're looking for my personal destruction, I don't even want to take the 1% chance.
Oh yeah, I'm right there with you. I just don't. I think the odds of it are just, not to get up on too much
Sure.
of a tangent, but you said Abraham's
Bosom.
bosom, and the second what of Sheol?
Well,
and this is yeah.
we really were going to go in different places.
No, we can just jump out of the bubble and we'll jump right back
Okay,
in. I just
all
want to hear this.
So Old Testament time, all the way up until the time
Yeah.
of the death of Christ. When someone died,
Sheol is like Gehenna, like the trash dump in Jerusalem.
yes, but it actually has. Yeah, I mean, if you're
Because
looking,
the Jews didn't really have a gnashing of teeth hell, did they?
yes,
They didn't, or
yeah,
didn't
they do.
They do.
So here's the aspect of it. You have synonyms like Sheol and Hades. Sheol's the Hebrew word. Hades is the
Right.
Greek word, and they ultimately they're the same place.
Yeah, right.
It's the same place being talked about. But now what you have is a division between the place for the wicked and the place for the righteous. Now they're both in Sheol or Hades, but they're two different compartments, if you
Okay.
will. So you
And
have
that's how the Jews had it until Jesus came along.
yes, and then you have the place of torment, which is where the wicked would go, which wicked would be those who basically didn't follow the teachings of Judaism, or what we would look at today as the Old Testament, the Torah, the prophets, the Tanakh, so forth. Now, for those who did, trust that God was going to send a Messiah to take care of their sins, they would go into Abraham's bosom, which is also called paradise. And this is where their souls resided until Jesus died on the cross and he set the captives free.
So Sheol's empty right now. Now that Jesus has been and gone.
The paradise portion is the place of torment still exists.
That's what is now hell. It's
yeah,
just the same thing.
Yeah, we
So,
think of it that way.
Because I've heard from atheists and some Christians that the Jews didn't have heaven or hell. They didn't really talk about it much. Even an afterlife was kind of nebulous in Judaism.
You had two different groups. You had the Pharisees who believed in a resurrection, believed in hell to the afterlife. Then you had the Sadducees who didn't. So you had some who did and some who didn't.
Atheist Edge. Walking the edge of what some consider offensive. But your feelings don't matter here. Only facts. Edgy commentary on the dangers of doctrine, the foibles of faith, the bullshit of belief, the stupidity of superstition, and the idiocy of indoctrination. With razor-sharp wit, curiosity, and critical thought, we take an unblinking look at today's religions. We are Atheist Edge.